So we are going to talk about the area of 2D shapes. So we're going to go over the formulas for each shape. Um, so just kidding. We'll go one shape at a time, and we'll go over the formulas first, and then we'll do an example with the formulas. Okay. You don't need to memorize the formulas. You'll be given a formula sheet when you take the test and all the PSSAs and any other time in existence. You'll be able to search it up. So you won't have to memorize them. Okay, so let's talk about a rectangle. I'm sure you've found the area of a rectangle before. So we've talked about the area with the circle, right? So the area is how big the inside of the shape is, right? So the area of a rectangle, if we want to find that, is we take the length and we multiply it by the width. So I'm just going to write A equals LW with an implied multiplication here. So you can write the multiplication if you want, but I'm not going to. So area equals length times width. When I'm solving a problem for area, I'm always going to want to write the formula first. So I'm always going to write, okay, this is a rectangle. I know area is length times width. Then I want to identify what my length and my width is. So in this scenario, my length is going to be this 8 centimeters, and my width is going to be 3 centimeters, because that's how wide the shape is. Okay, so I know that my formula is length times width, so I know my length is 8 centimeters, and my width is 3. So what that's saying is now we're doing 8 times 3. And 8 times 3 is going to give us 24, right? And then we always have to label our answer. And we're going to label it centimeters because that's what's in the problem. But remember, this is really centimeters times centimeters. So because it's the same thing we're multiplying together, we can square it. So that's important. Area has the square. So you can't lose that. That has to be on each problem that's squared. If it's not, then it's not the right answer. Okay, so we kind of went a little fast through rectangles because you've seen it before. So we're going to go just as fast through squares. So squares are area equals. Now this one's going to be a little different because we're dealing with sides. So areas equals sides squared. And that squared, remember, really means side times side. Okay, so that's really what that means. So we're just going to multiply this, because remember, a square, all the sides are the same length. So we're going to plug this into our formula. Area equals side squared. The side of our square is 6 feet, right? So we can plug that in for S, and then we'll have that squared. There is a square button on your calculator. It's the one that looks like X2. If you just press 6 and then the X2 button, then it'll populate that 2 up there. Okay, so, or you can just do 6 times 6, which we know 6 times 6 is 36. And then what are we missing? Well, we're missing the label. So good news is we have what it is. It's feet. Okay, so we're going to write feet. And what are we missing on here? The squared, because it's feet times feet. Okay. So now let's look at a parallelogram. We'll go a little slower through the parallelogram. Okay. So a parallelogram is kind of like a slanted rectangle, really. But instead of length and width, we're going to talk about a base and a height. Okay, so, right, so the formula for this is, sorry, I wasn't sure if I pressed the record button. Okay, area is our base times our height. Our base times our height. Okay, and it's really important that you make sure you identify that the height is from the top to the bottom. It's not the edge piece. So I don't care about that little edge piece. I want from the top to the bottom. Okay. So looking at this shape down here, we have 3 numbers, but we only need 2. Well, our base, I feel like, hopefully, is kind of straightforward. Our base is the bottom of the shape. So this 15 is our base, right? So the bottom of our shape. But the height is not our slant, right? It's from the bottom to the top. So this 5 is going to be our height. So we're going to write our formula. Area equals base times height. And we know that our base, we said, was 15. And then our height, in this case, is 5. If it helps, cross out the 7 so you don't get distracted by it. Okay? And now you're going to plug in your calculator, 15 times 5. So we're going to do 15 times 5. And that's going to give us 75. Now, don't forget to label. When you label, it should be centimeters squared, right? It should be centimeters squared. Okay, so now we're going to get into the 2 more complicated shapes. So the first 3 so far have just been multiplying, right? The next ones are going to be multiplying, but now we're going to add fractions in, so that's going to be not so fun. All right, so hopefully you're good with rectangles, squares, and parallelograms, because now we're moving on to triangles. Okay, so the formula for a triangle is area equals 1/2 of your base times your height. 1/2 of your base times your height. Whereas just like the parallelogram, our base is that bottom piece and the height is from the top of the point to the base. Okay, so it's not my sides. So let's first start by writing our formula. Area equals 1/2 base times height. Now we need to look at the shape. We have 4 numbers here. That's a lot of numbers. I only need a base and a height. So I have a couple extra things, right? So our base is going to be the bottom of the triangle. So our base is this 12. Remember, the height is from the top of the point to the base, right? From the top of the point to the base. So from the top of the point to the base is our height. These other 2 numbers, these sides, are just extra crap that we don't need, extra information. Okay, so now we have our base and our height. So let's plug it into the formula. So our formula is 1/2 of our base, I'm going to put everything in parentheses, times our height. Okay, so now let's start solving this. Thinking about what is 1/2 of 12? What is half of 12? Well, 1/2 of 12 is 6, and then you're going to multiply the 4. So what is 6 times 4? Hopefully you're thinking 24. Now we have to label this, but look at our shape. Look at our triangle. Does it have any units? Does it have inches or centimeters or any of that? No, right? So if it doesn't have any labels, you're going to label it with units because that's what there are. So that's what like inches is or centimeters. Those are units of measurement. So because we don't have any, we can't just leave it blank. We have to write units squared. Okay, so don't forget to square. And we have to write units because there are none. Okay, so hopefully that one wasn't too bad. Let's do the trapezoid now. So the trapezoid has a pretty similar thing, except with the trapezoid we have a top base and a bottom base. So we need to include those somehow, right? So this formula is going to be a little crazy looking, okay? So it's 1/2 of our height times base 1 plus base 2. Okay, so that's 1/2 of your height, and then you add up your bases and multiply them by the height, or 1/2 of the height. So we always start by writing our formula. 1/2 height, base 1 plus base 2. So we're going to label our base 1 and our base 2. Our base 1 is our top base, is that top of the shape, is our base 1. The bottom of the shape is always our base 2. And then the height is from one corner of the top base to the bottom. So in this case, it's going to be 4 inches. All right, so now we have all of our figures, all of our numbers, right? Now let's start to plug them in. So we have 1/2 of our height, which is 4. And then we have to add up our bases. Our base 1 was 3, plus our base 2 was 6. So first thing, remember when we do order of operations, it's PEMDAS, right? So we do parentheses first. So we want to do this 3 plus 6 first. So it's 1/2 of 4, and then 3 plus 6 is 9, right? Okay, so now we have to start multiplying, right? So what is 1/2 of 4? Well, half of 4 is going to be 2. And then we just bring the 9 down. And now we do, what is 2 times 9? 2 times 9 is 18. And then we can't forget about our label, our inches squared, right? Okay, so I know that the triangle and the trapezoid were a lot, right? So now we introduce fractions and adding and all that stuff. Don't stress too much. We're going to get plenty of practice with this though, okay? And you're going to have the formulas at your ready. All right, so if you have any questions about what we did, make sure you ask me, okay?